let's move over to something interesting conversation here. I don't know if anybody's ever watched Based Camp with Simone and Malcolm Collins. Probably two of the most hipster-looking of hipsters I've ever seen, and yet incredibly based with what they talk about. It's breaking a lot of mental paradigms whenever I watch them. It's just like, you would think that people with such thick-rimmed glasses and such interesting choices for clothing and hairstyles and everything else, number one, you wouldn't expect that they would be married, and number two, you wouldn't expect that they would be having children. But number three, you wouldn't expect them to be right-wing. And yet, here we are. Very interesting. And one of their first times that it just goes to show that Simone and Malcolm, I think, are actually kind of on the cutting edge of, in terms of the cultural zeitgeist. In that they've sat down with a VTuber. Now, I know that Lotus Eaters, for example, have been wanting to get Kirsche on as a guest for some time. She is waiting for a more modest type of VTuber model to be finished before she will go on Lotus Eaters. Because, as we know, if you watch Kirsche long enough, the booba doobie bouncing with our Foxu girl wouldn't surprise me if they experienced what I experienced. The left moved away from them. That could be. I don't really know a lot about the backstory of Simone and Malcolm Collins. I just know that they are. It can be a highly intellectual, very meta type conversation with them anytime they put up content. But yeah, they sat down with a VTuber named Leaflit, who she's not just a VTuber, she's also a game dev, and a very good one at that. I didn't really know a whole lot about Leaflit. I knew about Kirsche and Smuggelana and Pipkin Pippa, and to a certain extent, Paws and Rosie Belmu, and some of the other ones that would comment on cultural issues and whatnot, with Kirsche sort of leaning into politics just a little bit, and same for Alana. But yeah, Leaflet's sort of all in on a lot of this stuff, and as of late, I've been noticing that Nuxtaku is really getting deep into the political waters, which I find terribly interesting, and also it makes for incredibly entertaining content, as just absolutely schizo Nux can be in the most delightful way possible. You're in for a ride when he when he has the greetings, gentlemen, and lady gentlemen, or gentlemen ladies, or however he starts things off these days. But good on them, and just sort of shows that we're on the right track here. But anyways, I wanted to maybe watch a bit of this and sort of learn more about this fascinating, lovely little blue-haired elven anime waifu, who is a VTuber, and quite a good one at that, that I'm just now discovering when someone mentioned them to me. But apparently they were always there, just took me a while to find out who they were.
Hopefully we can maintain the position, but we'll see. So hold on, yeah. I want to do what I originally wanted to do, which was do a study of your career and sort of what it felt like starting as a streamer, because you didn't start with political intentions at all.
Yes.
And how you moved, the various controversies, how they moved you, etc.
Okay. So the thing is a lot. One sentiment that I've heard is now that Trump won, she's like this. But the thing is, I've always talked about these things. It's usually during a late night session where I'm playing a different game, and then we'll be talking about this stuff. So I've always kind of talked about this stuff, and always
just not always on stream.
It really is kind of just coincidence, because what happened was again, like I said, because I'm working on the game and I'm working on the novels, I didn't have time for YouTube.
Mhm.
So two of my mods, one of which is my producer, approached me and they said, "Hey, I want to learn how to edit videos. So like, can I run the channel because you're not using the channel that much?" And I said, "Okay, sure. Fine." So
That sort of happened with me and with Action. He wanted to get more into video editing, and I needed a more reliable editor than the one that I had at the time, that was charging what I felt was a bit higher rate than a bit of an unfair rate that I wasn't really getting a lot for my money with the editor that had been referred to me. And so I had heard that Action wanted to get into editing, and I said, "Hey, I need an editor. I need highlight reels. I need shorts. What do you charge?" He quoted me a rate. I said, "That's perfect. Here you go." Handed him VODs that he needed and just said, "Go nuts." I don't give a whole lot of direction because I believe in artist freedom. Very rarely have I ever had to come back with notes for Action. He and I sort of, I think, operate on a lot of the same wavelengths. We share a lot of the same brain cells. So I don't really have to give him very much direction. Plus, I think our sense of humors mesh rather well. So he kind of knows the sort of comedic timing I'm going for. And not only that, he's just a fantastic content creator, and I think it also helps he and I are roughly of the same generation. So yeah, good editors, worth their weight in gold, and sometimes the best sort of relationships like that tend to sprout up organically in time.
they basically take whatever I put up, and then they take it, they edit it, they throw it up, they do all the thumbnails for me,
You
and
bought,
then we
lad.
split it. That's
Hold on, I have to
that's
say pause on this before you go further. Because earlier you're like, I don't pay much attention to YouTube. And I was like, you do daily, fully edited videos. Don't throw this, I don't pay much attention. Now I'm learning it's one of your Discord. Okay, that makes sense.
I do sometimes I'll do an edit on the video, but it's mostly my editor now, who's originally just one of my mods from Twitch, and one of my producers that are kind of working on it, and they're helping me out with it because
Yeah, that's kind of the secret of a lot of channels that you see out there. It's not a one-man band or a one-woman crew. It is the product of a lot of really good editors, or even just a small handful of really good editors dedicated to their craft, who have one talent, maybe a small handful of talents that they work for, and they push out content. Starting out maybe once a week, moving up to a couple of times a week, to daily. And it's a lot like inertia. You have to build up the inertia and just keep it going, because that's how the algorithms work, especially with YouTube. You'll find yourself rising up and getting more views as you keep putting out more content. And to those who are just starting out, yes, it's going to be horrible in the beginning. It's going to be awful, mediocre content. I go back and look at some of my early stuff, and yeah, it's like, well, not exactly my finest hour, but it's getting it out there. You have to push volume. You have to start with quantity, then work your way towards quality. It's much like, say, a stand-up comedian. Open mic nights at comedy clubs are a chance for you to work on your set. And then when you've got your set down, that's what you take with you on the road. And that eventually is what will get you comedy specials. Well, what used to get you comedy specials, and eventually sitcoms on network television, etc., etc. Nowadays, the content game has changed, and it's what's making you go viral on video sharing platforms. It's what's getting you on the podcast circuit. It's what's getting you self-published and even self-distributed comedy specials that may eventually get picked up on a streaming service like Netflix or some other alternative platform out there that's more artist-friendly. But yeah, don't think for a second that Leaflit is alone. She's done the very wise decision of building up a good team. So, hats off to her for that.
Yeah.
I just because I'm taking care of so many other projects, and also like we have like a company, like our company, like Angel Sword Studios, is like we actually manage like another talent as well, and we're getting a new one like soon. Yeah, like YouTubers, like anime. Yeah, thank you. But it's again, it's like so much stuff that is really kind of a godsend that they were like, you know, you're not really using the YouTube channel, and like, you know, you could probably expand on that, just talking about what you like talking about anyway. And plus,
yeah.
I mean,
I'm going to be totally frank with you, chat. I'm going to take clips from this particular stream, and I'm going to put them up as shorter segments, although probably end up being longer form videos, just reacting to all of this. And you're going to see these later on the YouTube channel. Because, I mean, that's just how the whole system works these days. There are people who, for example, will go over to Asmongold's stream and watch him live on Twitch reacting to various videos or even live events on the internet. And then probably a few days later, you'll see that same content popping up in shorter form on YouTube. Because he's got a team of editors with him that will take his VODs, cut them down, and put up the entertaining parts up on his YouTube channel, which I'm subscribed to, and most other people are subscribed to. I mean, it's just how it is. Works for him, and honestly, it's working for me as well. Like I said earlier, that Tony Robbins quote, "Success leaves clues." I'm watching what works for other people, and I'm replicating it for my own success. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I would encourage everyone else to do the same. If being a content creator, being a VTuber, being a streamer is what you want to do. The clues are out there, you just have to be clever enough to watch for them. And honestly, you don't really need to be all that clever. You just have to keep your eyes open.
My editors are you know, they're kind of more politically aligned with me, so they're like, oh, we want to see more of that stuff. So then
as well they should be. I hate to keep pausing and starting and stopping here, but that's another thing. The team that has coalesced around me, you know, Rosso here in the chat with no worries whatsoever. Also Action Bastard. The team of people that I have on the mod crew and working in an editing capacity, I would say that there's a lot of mindset, philosophical, and even to a certain extent political alignment between a lot of us. Are we going to agree on 100% of everything? Absolutely not. but there is more alignment and a mutual respect for each other's views, especially where things diverge. Because we appreciate that we all come from different perspectives on things. Good to have people on the same wavelength, or you end up trying to tip around eggshells, yes. And there have been some people who have, over time, it has been revealed that that alignment was not there. And I hate using that word, alignment. I think it's such an overused word, especially when you get into a corporate setting. There's so many people in corporate America, for example, that just bang on and on about alignment, and this, alignment, that. And I just want to pull my hair out, what little remains of it, and scream at them, will you shut up about alignment? But when I say alignment, I'm not talking about it in that corporate sense or in the ironic sense or anything like that. I'm talking about a genuine alignment of views, of perspectives, and of philosophy. And you sort of have to have that. And there were some members of my team that alignment, turns out it was not there. And so we've sort of had to part ways with those individuals in favor of a more leaner, more robust, more aligned team. Which, to be frank, they would probably use the same sort of corporate doublespeak on me anyway. So it's like, might as well just visit it on them first. Anyway, let's move on.
Help create it. And
that explains so much. That also explains why you don't see yourself, because, so I know you from YouTube only, and in YouTube you are like 100% a political commentator. The way that they've chosen to pull your clips, it's 100% political commentary.
And, I mean, we were doing that before
she's not all
too,
about
right?
that.
We were already kind of making that kind of content before the election. And then the election hit, and then it was like there was just so much news, right? Like there's news every hour, and I'm sure you guys know about it. Like as content creators in the same space, there's just like rapid fire news over and over and over again. So there's
we
always
can't
something to
keep
talk
up.
about.
None of us
So
can.
if you are not a YouTube commentator, you will not understand the struggle of this. Simone and I really want to maintain a channel. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering why she's not talking much in this video, it's because the kid's crying really loudly. She'll mention that at the end of the video, and you'll be like,
dear.
oh, that's why she hasn't been talking. But
Just glad we do enjoy the bits of fun and learning more and more. Quite a treat. I appreciate it, Rossa. I'm grateful to have all of you here.
Simone and I really want our channel to engage with philosophy, engage with religion, engage with science, engage with demographic trends, and
Wow, they're just like me, for real, for real.
engage with politics. And yet, so much is happening so quickly, it feels like we can only afford to engage in politics right now. It's like, okay, so for example, yesterday we did a video on the US aid controversy. That's huge, right? Like, that definitely needed a video. But today, I'm skipping doing a video on shutting down the US Department of Education and the US Department of Consumer Protection. Like, that just doesn't even deserve an episode because just so much is happening
No,
so
it does.
quick.
You get
We
to it.
literally might just end up not doing an episode on that, which is wild.
Okay, so I want to keep going. You doing it with your mom, because we
Yes.
plan on doing this with our kids as they get older. Can you talk about how you got pulled into that?
Oh yeah, sure. So me and my mom have
That's
always
interesting.
played games together, like MMOs, and like we've always watched anime together. And as you guys
Her
know,
mum sounds cool.
doing content creation is like such a busy job. Like you barely have time to do anything. So it got to a point where I wasn't able to spend as much time with my mom as I wanted to. Like we used to play games together all the time,
Oh,
and it just
sucks.
became like, oh, I can't because I have to work, I have to stream, I have to edit videos or
Hmm.
whatnot. And then one day, I had a suggestion. I was like, what if you just stream with me? And so she was like, I'll
Hey.
give it a try. So we got her a little picture.
I mean, it's worked for other mother-child streamers before. I mean, Pecora and Pecomom is the first, or Pecomama, I should say. That's the first example that springs to mind. And Pekka Mama did so well. I think people were just like, yeah, whatever, Pecora, just get, off you get. We want to spend time with Pekka Mama. Pekka Mama has been such a resounding success that people they almost just want to have her as, have her just stream by herself. I think that's just so wild. But, then again, Pekka Mama, dear lovely lady. And, yeah, just... There's so many things I could say about Pekka Mama, but it's like I also would feel awkward about commenting about another man's wife. But yeah, here we are. She's she's quite lovely in so many ways. Vin, thank you for the follow. Oh dear, Vin. That is not how things work here. And just for that, you get the banhammer. You do not come into my chat, give me a follow, and then say, follow back, please. No, that is not how it works. That is a quick way to get yourself banned. Anyway, moving on.
She put it up there, and she actually enjoyed it. So after that, I was like, okay, well, we'll just get you like, your own setup for it, and then like we can stream together. We'll do a thing on Sunday, and so that's why we play every Sunday together. And sometimes she streams on her own now because she actually likes it herself now. So yeah,
That's awesome. Okay. And then talk about the early controversies that begin moving you potentially more politically.
sure. So probably the biggest one was the Discord one, which I
The
did a
monkey
video
one.
on that one. Yeah, I did a video on that recently on the
Yeah.
monkey one. Yeah, it's funny too because when I released that video, a bunch of people were saying like, "Oh,
I feel out of the loop on... Well, I am out of the loop. What? Discord and monkeys? What? If somebody knows about that in chat and can summarize, please tell me what is she talking about there?
oh, that was me. That was me. I was the person that that they were getting mad at, and then you stepped in, and he was like, that was crazy, and it's so wild because I didn't. It's crazy how much impact one person can have. Like one person that just has bad intentions.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll tell you. So I'll do a quick summary of this, and then I'll tell you a quick story. So the event she's talking about was essentially somebody. This is during the BLM riots. With like they're acting like monkey, like literally meaning not like the black people or anything, but just like the rioters, chimping out, right? Like what does that word mean, right? And people attack the person, you defended them. I think courageously. I don't know if I would have taken that risk. And then you never walked back from that position. And then like a crazy person decided to try to.
Good. That is the one thing that you should never do, is try to walk back anything you say, or try to dilute it. Stand your ground. People thought they were going to gin up a campaign, a cancel culture campaign against me for expressing my own beliefs when it comes to a topic of faith. These people who, most if not all of them, weren't even Christian. And they thought they had some room to talk on any of this. And I can't tell you how many times I got shit-tested on all of this. And each time, held my ground. And the campaign withered on the vine. And went away. Mainly because I also ended up blocking a lot of those people.
To ruin your life and like got your Discord taken down. But like we have a lot of. Do you know Razib Khan, by the way? He's a famous geneticist. Anyway, he used to work for the New York Times, and now he does like a genetics blogs where he talks about, well, the types of things you're not supposed to talk about in genetics. He's been on our show before. He's done, like, he mostly talks about differences in ethnicities, but like down to like really granular levels, like different castes in India and stuff like that. Anyway, he has this one crazy person where whenever he gets a new investor or whenever he's working at a new company, they will call the company. So he always warns someone when they hire him. They go, you're going to get a call from Rebecca. Here's a script of most of what she's going to say. And this is just something he has to live with his entire.
This is what Rush Limbaugh used to title the seminar caller. These are people who are handed a list of talking points or a script from some sort of left-wing NGO or organization, a bunch of agitators who would call up his program when he was live, start off by saying that they're a long-time listener, first-time caller, agree with everything they say, and then proceed to just bang on about left-wing talking points on the topic du jour. Easily spotted and very quickly dropped from the air by either Rush himself or the producers. And it's the same thing with some of these people. That there are certain ones that just have these certain individuals or public personalities that live rent-free in their heads, and they devote every waking life to trying to make their lives miserable. And honestly, this Rebecca person, it's like, get a life, you people, please. Go outside and touch grass.
Entire life.
Yeah, it's such a pain, like having to deal with that. Like,
yeah. Oh, what's worse is for some of my friends. So there's this thing called the Rationality Wiki. I don't know if you've heard of it, but they figured out how to do like really well in like SEO results. And so for a long time, a lot of my friends, because they would always come up first in search results, even though it was just won by like one crazy former neo-Nazi, actual former neo-Nazi by the way, who's now like the same, but like woke. And so he just attacks all of these people.
Just goes to show you that those types, they were always feds. And they were always LARPers. Somebody claims to actually be a neo-Nazi. They're just glowies. That's all they are. They're just glowies. They're not real. They are trying to rope you into some type of psyop. And the best thing you can do is just ignore them and don't give them the energy or the attention that they crave.
People, and he gets it to come up very first, like all of the sins they've ever committed.
Oh my God.
And that would just like destroy your career. Like, I'm so lucky I got a Wikipedia article before that happened to me, because now I can never be trounced by it, but just like, wow.
Man, that's scary.
Anyway, continue. So this happens to you. How do you like internally, in terms of your like ideology, respond to this event?
It was kind of rough because I'm not gonna lie. I would be lying if I said that it didn't affect me. Of course, like, you know, you work so hard on your content and building up your community, and then, you know, seeing it kind of all just evaporate because of one person is kind of it was distressing. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not gonna let someone say that I'm not gonna admit to something that I didn't do, right? And they were trying to get me to say like, oh yeah, I'm sorry for being racist. I'm like, I'm not racist though, so I'm like, I'm not gonna say that. And it's kind of like it's so weird, just like how it went. And like, you know, they basically told me, oh, you should go look into some, you know, KKK and Nazi sites to find out like what racist terms are. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, how do you know? Like,
yeah, no, just refuse to accept their premise. don't even accept their premise. It's like, I'm not even going to engage with this premise because it is just so ridiculous. I am who I am, unapologetically so, not going to apologize for it. And if you have a problem with that, you can fuck off. Every single time, they're going to shit test you. Every single time, they are going to offer you the opportunity to back down, bend the knee, and then they are going to just put you through unimaginable horrors and hell in the form of some long-standing struggle session. You give away a part of your soul whenever you bend the knee like that. And you give the rest of your soul away when you endure the struggle session. The humiliation ritual. So don't bend the knee. Do not give in to these people. Stand firm. And tell the haters to fuck off.
Like what you can or can't say when the context doesn't matter. Right.
It is so interesting to me, and there's a few examples of this that like are very, very confusing to me. So here's one example, and who knows if I get tarred and feathered for this, but it's the term tar baby. So people will say that tar baby is a racist term for black people, and I'm like, yes, it is a racist. It was for a brief period in like an American history of racist term for black people. But
who still uses that? I mean, seriously, who uses that term anymore? This just feels like something they just dredged up out of the past. And psyoped and gaslit people into thinking that it's still something that is somehow used as common terminology. And I'm just like, I have never or hardly ever heard of it, except in historical context. You know, discussing actual history. No, nobody says that. Nobody uses that terminology anymore. Wait. Again, this is... It just seems like such a psyop.
But it hasn't been for a long time. But the reason why I hold so much hatred to the people who want to remove the term from the lexicon is the term tar baby comes from the stories of Briar Rabbit, which was a black, traditional African children's story that we captured in the American lexicon, and is a truly African contribution to the sort of American history. Whenever somebody
they want to capture control of the language, because if they can control the language, they can control you. And they can keep opposition from organizing. Again, going back to what I said earlier, whoever is the most organized wins. So if they can capture language, they can control people more easily, and they can prevent opposition from organizing.
Talks about being thrown in the briar patch, or whenever somebody talks about a tar baby, they are referencing traditional African songs and myths.
And they're probably not even really all that offended by it, if at all. They just want to play act that they are offended, so that they can shit test you and get you to back down. And get you to bend the knee. Again, it's a shit test. Don't fall for it.
That people fought so hard to bring over on the slave ships. The people fought so hard to give to their kids and give to their kids in the most brutal of conditions. And after all that can just be erased by like a woke person is, to me, really, really hurtful, because somebody at one
It's not
point
just
decided
hurtful,
to...
it's repugnant is what it is. The idea that one woke person can come in and all of a sudden demand the radical transformation of the lexicon. It's just paving the road to tyranny. And again, it is giving nefarious people control over the lexicon so that they can control you and keep you from organizing. Need backbone again, something that's been missing, yeah. The most powerful thing you can do is be the adult in the room who stands up to all of this madness and says no. And each time they caterwaul and complain and call you names, cut them off and say, I said no. I said no. I said no. Now eat your veggies, clean your room, and go to bed at a decent hour. That's all these people are craving, is an adult, fatherly figure, probably something that was missing from their lives, to tell them no. No, no more of this. No more of this nonsense.
Use that as a racist term.
I mean, it's kind of funny because you saw the same thing with a lot of branding, right? Like you've got the Chiefs, for instance, Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, all of these things that were being kind of erased from, and not even, with the case of, was it the Redskins? They even wanted that, right? The local tribe did want that.
They wanted to keep it, yeah.
Which they changed their name over to the Washington Commanders. That didn't go over so well. I'm hearing that the Washington football team, the American football team, is going to be switching back to the Redskins soon enough. That's what I'm hearing. I don't follow sport very closely, so could be wrong on that. Feel free to correct me in chat if you've heard otherwise, or if you know otherwise. But yeah, so much for that.
So it's kind of funny how it's sort of just like a crusade that's not even for them.
One of the craziest examples of this is when the BLM movement was like, we need to protect Black culture, and as such we need to like denormalize the nuclear family, like denormalize the idea of a husband and wife raising kids together. And I was like, did you know that in the 1970s Black people had 1/2 the rate of unmarriage as white people in terms of kids? The kids born out of wedlock were at 1/2 the rate of white couples. That this current idea that it's like somehow Black culture to be unmarried is just a completely modern phenomenon and completely downstream of wokeism.
Yeah, it's totally a modern phenomenon, and so much of it created by perverse incentives, brought about, ironically enough, by the Civil Rights Act and the Great Society. Like, no one wanted Uncle Ben's and Aunt Jemima's. They were amazing staples that should not have been changed. Yeah, and Land O'Lakes. Another example of something that got whitewashed in a way, to where the Native American symbol of the girl in the Land O'Lakes packaging, now it's gone. It was just this boring, genetic-looking sunrise. The iconography has been erased. And not only has the image of Aunt Jemima been taken off, they've completely rebranded as something else, which I can't even remember the name. That's how forgettable it is. Done the same thing with Uncle Ben's, yeah. You know, the fake outrage forced the change never should have even been considered. Exactly. Nobody asked for this. Nobody really wanted it. Nobody had an issue with it. But because some astroturfed movement got some money from USAID or from some other NGO, started harassing board members, calling up the officers, spamming their inboxes and their social media, completely astroturf movements have forced these changes that nobody likes. Kept the land, removed the native. That's what people say about the changes, yeah. Yeah, they kept the land and the lakes and removed the native. It's so ridiculous.
And it's messed up that now they're trying to like cauterize this change. Anyway.
And I mean the fact of the matter is, like, if you distill it down, it's a disservice to all of those communities. Like it doesn't do anyone better to kind of promote, like, you know, that kind of behavior, because it's not good for people, like, financially, spiritually, emotionally.
No,
like,
it's not. And that, I think, is the point. Much like what we've been talking about with modern architecture. It's not designed to heal the soul, to stir the spirit, to inspire. It is there to be impositional. It is there to impose itself and to depress and demoralize the people. And that's what we're seeing here. Changing of the Washington Redskins to the Washington Commanders and having that genetic W logo. The elimination of the iconography with Uncle Ben's, Aunt Jemima's, Lando Lakes. All of it is designed to depress and dispirit you. All of it is designed to demoralize you as a people. To keep you down, on some level to keep you more easily controlled. A way of quietly communicating to you that the wokerati, the elites, the globalist power is absolute, even though it's not really. But their control is absolute. That your views, your voice does not matter. And that you are subject to their will and their rule. Like, they believe what they're doing is the right thing, but they're actually doing things they claim to be against. Yeah. It's... there's a great line from the episode called The Drumhead on Star Trek The Next Generation, where Captain Picard says, villains who twirl their mustaches are easy to spot. And what's more difficult to spot is those who clothe themselves in good deeds and righteousness. They have genuinely brainwashed themselves into believing that all of this is the right thing. But on a certain spiritual meta level, what they are doing is just depressing and dispiriting and even oppressing to a certain extent the population that they claim to be fighting for. And especially the portions of the population they claim to be fighting against.
It dehumanizes, like, everyone involved.
Yeah. Well, okay, so here's one that I haven't heard that much about, and I am actually very interested about, is your Hogwarts controversy.
Oh, okay.
Because it sounds like you personally
here we go.
haven't really crossed the, like, trans skepticism Rubicon yet. And so that puts you in a position where I had assumed that most of your audience wouldn't be particularly surprised, given the stuff that I hear you say. you would watch something like a Hogwarts or say like, I'm not going to boycott this. But apparently a significant portion of your audience was surprised by this, or at least a sliver enough to cause a hubbub. Was that what caused it, or was it like the Vtuber community that caused it, or like how did this get started and why was it seen as weird?
So like there's in the VTuber community and just like kind of online on like the loud vocal minority of like gaming, there's a lot of people that, you know, they have interests in their narrative not being tampered with at all. And you know,
the basement dwellers who have gaslit and radicalized themselves into believing that they somehow have gender dysphoria.
they kind of spread the whole J.K. Rowling is evil and she said all these bad things. And I think it's, sorry, I'm trying to formulate like how to say it.
No,
But
it's a difficult.
Just
You're
say
entering a
it,
verbal
dear.
trap right
Just
now.
say it.
yeah,
I have laid Caltrop on the floor and said, "Dance for me, Leaflit."
it's like it's, and the thing is, I really, and the funny thing is like I have friends who are trans, and like I have nothing against that. I draw a very strict line of like when it comes to children, because you know there's that's a whole different thing, right? But just in terms of Hogwarts, I think it's just the vocal people like who just don't like J.K. Rowling. They just went out of their way to like attack anyone that was into it, and there were particularly a lot of those types of individuals in the VTubing community, because the VTubing community is like kind of, honestly, it's like kind of like a big hug box, so like super
probably a bit too much so. And I can tell you now, Chad, if you're expecting a hug box here, you may find a friend to a certain extent, but I'm a believer in tough love. If you're doing things to fuck up your life, I'm going to tell you, you're making poor decisions and you're fucking up your own life. And you need to change your ways, otherwise you're going to keep getting the same results. If you want different results, let's look at what you need to change in order to get better results. I'm about improving people's lives. I'm about people lifting themselves up and enjoying better lives than what they had before. I don't believe in tolerating mediocrity. Mediocrity is just like managed decline, and that is ultimately a choice. You can choose mediocrity and decline, or you can choose better. Let's choose better. Let's figure out what better looks like. Like the current movement that ruined the community's image, there's a lot of awful people, particularly in the VTubing community, that they behaved horribly and resulted in a lot of people we thought would just, that they were done with content creation, that drove a lot of people away for a long time. Some of the most notorious example, well, the most notorious example was Pika-Me. They left behind a terrible void when they graduated. And then they came back as Henya the Genius with VShoujo. Which, when that happened, it was like God's in his heaven once again and all is right with the world. Same thing with Silvervale. You make a girl like that cry on stream, and she was just sobbing her poor eyes out. For some people, it triggered great sympathy. For me, I saw that, and just as a man, it infuriated me. I mean, just imagine if it were your sister, your daughter, a relative, a female friend, a girlfriend, or even a wife that was subjected to that, what would you do? Just the amount of hate that she received, all because she wanted to play a fucking video game on stream. It's unforgivable. And the people who orchestrated that campaign against her, I loathe them with every fibre of my existence, and believe that they are the ones who should be harassed and hounded off the internet and out of polite society. I was absolutely incensed when I saw that. I'm glad that she's doing better now. I'm glad that she found her strength and her courage to go on and to do it anyway. If nothing else, just to drive the haters crazy, because the haters can all fuck off, as I said. It's tragic. It really is. It never should have happened in the first place. But past few years have, if they've taught us anything, there's a lot of mentally unwell people out there. I'm to the point where I agree with Nuxtaku. We need to bring asylums back, because we've got too many crazies wandering about in the general population. And I'm sorry if your entire existence revolves around your sexuality, your gender dysphoria, and if it is so easily perturbed by people wanting to play a wizard-themed video game, you've got bigger problems to contend with. If your existence is so fragile that something like that, a young girl who is a wolf Vtuber wanting to play a Harry Potter video game on stream, if your existence is so disturbed by that sort of thing, you've really got to reevaluate the premises and foundations of that existence. But I also think that you're not really all that fragile as you proclaim to be. That really it's just your own weaknesses and insecurities showing. You just happen to have a microphone in the form of a social media account that you can amplify those. And you've found fellow travelers who just decided to gang up on a VTuber one day. Because you just didn't like what she had to say, or you didn't like her choice of video games. It's really sad and pathetic. And in the end, people who will remember who Silverveil is and was, those who attacked her, so very forgettable, the lot of them. Silverveil is at least interesting. That lot? What an absolute bore they are. And there, I think, at least in terms of the popular zeitgeist of the current era, is the unpardonable sin.
Positive vibes all the time and stuff, you know. So it's like, anyway, people, I think they got surprised because I didn't talk about this stuff as openly before. Around that time when Hogwarts came out, I have a manager and he's like, maybe don't talk about that stuff. I was like, I really want to talk about, maybe don't talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
And
If message to all future potential managers, if you tell me not to talk about something, I am not going to listen to you. If you try to scare and gaslight me into not talking about something, I'm not going to listen to you. I will probably dismiss you from your duties. If you are a friend or colleague in the space and you're telling me, hey, maybe don't talk about that sort of thing, I'm not going to listen to you. If anything, I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm going to focus on that sort of thing. Because what you're doing is giving me an indicator that this is something that needs to be discussed. This is something that we need to air out in the open. And let the disinfectant of sunlight clear away the cobwebs and the dust and the chaff so that we can focus on the wheat, on the core of whatever it is. Don't ever tell me not to talk about something. There are many things that I believe that I shall never say. But I will never say anything that I don't believe. When somebody tells me, don't talk about this, don't associate with that person, don't follow them, don't do this, don't do that, I'm probably going to do the exact opposite. I tend to see them as people not having a personality. Yeah, if your personality and your entire existence is so focused on your sexuality, on your gender dysphoria, and even to a certain extent on your politics or who you voted for, that's... what a superficial existence. And that's the sad part. We are so much more as individuals than who we voted for, or what our sexuality is, or just even to a certain extent what we believe. Though our beliefs make up a fundamental, very important part of who we are. But mere politics and sexual identity, if that's all there is to you, you really are an NPC. And I would say that's a sure sign you need to go outside, touch grass, and talk to people, real people. It's time to step away from the computer and put the phone down and go outside and touch grass. Because if that's all you focus on, if that's all you talk about, if every conversation tends to be shifting back to that and talking about yourself, yeah. Time to go outside and touch grass. Time to get out there and see the world. Because there's so much more to life than that.
It's kind of like that, but so I would talk about it like late at night, or like late at night. I'd be doing like late night gaming. I play with this bounty hunting game, and then I'll talk about it then, like different topics along those lines. But yeah, sorry.
Well, you know, one thing you mentioned there that I often feel, so we've had Hope Not Hate, which is this UK thing. They did this like undercover reporter like in our organization for like a year plus, trying to find us saying anything racist or bad or anything like that. Couldn't find anything, which I'm really thankful for. But like, you know, we've been...
There's an organization that needs to be destroyed. Hope Not Hate is an illegitimate organization and they need to be destroyed. If it has come to that, where they're trying to do a sort of glow-up version of what James O'Keefe does for a living, whereas James O'Keefe is a real journalist exposing real corruption, I'm sorry, Hope Not Hate needs to be destroyed. They are a completely illegitimate organization.
Numerous Guardian hit pieces on us, everything. So the news is always trying to get us. And the funniest thing is that's like if you just sat down and listened to our actual content beginning to end, even just like 3 episodes, you would find so much more worse stuff than you've been able to find on all of your like dredging expeditions. And it's like the best place to hide something is like deep in a stream.
Yeah, like late at night, like 8 hours in, 12 hours in.
No, like,
Yeah,
hey,
but
I gotta be honest. I think this. No, but then somebody's gonna cap you one time, you know? Oh, who was that person who I felt kind of bad at because they were a streamer? Okay, so it was a Twitch streamer who worked for Sweet Baby Inc. And it was a woman or something. Do you remember when this happened and her stream got capped?
was it?
She had like 15 followers or something, and so she thought like nobody would possibly be capping her.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It was a VTuber, right?
Yeah, it was a VTuber.
Yeah, I remember
Oh.
what you're talking about. They said
I
a
wonder
bunch
who that was. I should be very curious to know.
of stuff, and then like people found it, of course, because people were trying to dig up stuff on Sweet Baby Inc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Damn.
the internet is
That one
forever.
was- Well, now I wonder was like AI. What are they gonna find me saying? I mean, I my positions just get more extreme as I go on. So I don't think I'm like you. I think that like I've been maybe
The longer you go on, the less fucks you give. It's like the older you get, the less fucks you have to give.
moving more, and you've been. Have you feel like you've been pretty politically stable, or do you feel like you've been sort of?
I mean, I again, like I used to be kind of more libertarian,
supposed
and I
to mean.
think as I've gotten older, I've kind of found that the social fabric matters a lot more than
Yeah, that's woken up to that. Yeah, the old libertarian to right wing pipeline strikes again.
I used to think. So I do see chipping a little bit like over just from the ridiculousness. Like I don't want to deal with it, you know. It's annoying. It's annoying. It's just like people screaming at you all the time, and like who wants to deal with that, right?
Yeah. No, it's funny. I'd actually say like I used to be libertarian, but like I'm not as libertarian anymore because you got people like JD Vance, and I'm like, yeah, whatever he does is probably okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
Yeah.
you got to
John
talk
this
Locke's
point.
bargain.
at all. You've been completely quiet. Why don't you talk about countryside stuff with her?
Countryside stuff.
Yeah, you moving
Sorry,
to the
Cindy's
suburbs
been
because you
trying
didn't
for,
want to
like,
move. I had to force you.
30 minutes straight and she just stopped, so your time is actually great. Wait, yeah, so have you moved to the countryside? Wait, yeah, like I mean
Yeah, I actually moved from California to. Yeah, it was funny when I first moved. I first moved to Texas, and my neighbors are like, "So, where are you guys from?" California, and they said, "Y'all
Oh.
keep Texas, okay?" I was like, "Don't."
Yeah, no, that's yeah. I have heard that having traveled through a lot of Texas, having had a lot of business in Texas, I can say that attitude is quite prevalent, especially once you get out into the country, and it becomes clear that the locals are not dealing with someone who's from around here, using the air quotes. That they will tell you, don't California my Texas. Don't think I could survive living in California. Neither could I. That's why I've never bothered. I've never even bothered, and I don't see the appeal. No, yeah, it's... And I've had people tell me about how they lived there for a while, moved away, got too expensive, got too crazy, got too unsafe, traffic's horrible. Just everything sucks about California, and it's so sad because it used to be this golden land of opportunity. And just somewhere along the line, it all just went horribly wrong. Ironically, I think it started to go really wrong whenever Reagan was the governor of California. One of the things that he really fucked up on was the closing of a lot of the state institutions, and then all of the other states following suit. Also, one of the first governors of a state to end no-fault divorce, those were two moments in the culture and in the history where I think things really started to go wrong. Because when you closed all of the mental institutions, you started having a rise in homelessness. You started seeing the rise of a lot of these hippie and beatnik movements, which again, a lot of that was just psyops conducted by the CIA and other intelligence agencies. And you started seeing things like the Manson family killing all the people they did. You started seeing the rise of a lot of New Age cults. And so much of it centered around California, to where they started to get that reputation of being the land of fruits and nuts. Visiting, yes, but living, no. Yeah, I might visit. Like, I would go for Off-Kai, maybe. San Diego Comic-Con, I don't know if I would go. I think it's gotten a bit too commercial for my taste. But, might go for Off-Kai. I don't know. I don't like the way that they treated Kirsche. You know, having her as a panelist and then all of a sudden cancelling the panel because Kirsche did a wrong thing and said some things that offended some shitlibs that were responsible for organising Off-Kai. So good on Rev Says Desu and Darling Strob for sort of doing an underground hosting of Kirsche for a Q&A session with something that they were already scheduled to do. But yeah, I don't see the appeal. 80s California looks so nice when you see videos and etc. of it, but it's definitely not the 80s anymore. No, yeah, 80s California was definitely cool. There was definitely a cool factor going on there. You could see a lot of... it was still a place that was growing and on the rise. And then at some point it just fell off. It just absolutely fell off. There was a point where California was a microcosm of America. Those days are long gone.
Don't worry. I don't like any of that stuff. That's why I laugh.
That is so good.
But
So
FYI,
actually-
by the way, Simone
Okay.
grew up in San Francisco.
Oh,
and
really?
First moved to Dallas before moving out here.
Yeah,
Oh,
when I told
wow.
everyone that I was going, I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, and
Mhm.
they freaked out when they realized I was moving, especially to Dallas. They're like, at least you can move to Austin. Like, they sort of thought Austin was like, well, at least they're liberal there. And they were just terrified, like, as
No.
if I, you know.
And then again, I wouldn't recommend a lot of people moving to Dallas these days because it's almost as though LA traffic is thrown up on the entire Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, as they call it. Though, I don't know, I have been noticing it's a little bit easier to get around as of late. I don't know if that's more people returning to office full-time, or if we're just seeing, well, I'll just come out and say it, maybe a lot of self-deportations. At least the... I don't know, one thing I have noticed whenever I am in the Dallas area and driving on the roads is that occasionally I would spot Mexican number plates. People who have driven their car from places in Mexico all the way up to Dallas. That's a long drive. Okay, I have, I think, twice in my life made a drive starting off from Dallas, going all the way to El Paso. That takes you a day, chat. I don't know if anybody else has ever made that drive. I have. It takes a day to make that drive. And then I was able to cross through New Mexico and into Arizona and make it to Phoenix in another day. I always found it a little bit odd, but I guess it's not without precedent to see number plates on vehicles from foreign countries. Starting to see it pop up more often, though it was still relatively rare over the past few years. As of late, any time that I happen to be in Dallas or in another major city in Texas for business, I haven't noticed it at all. Also noticing that the traffic is starting to getting a little bit lighter, a bit more bettable. The trouble spots that you would always catch traffic delays, especially during morning and afternoon rush hour, haven't been quite as bad as they used to be. I don't know if that is the product of the new immigration policies, but I welcome it because traffic is, in some of the major cities in Texas, is just nightmarish at times, whether it's Dallas or Houston or San Antonio, especially Austin. My God, Austin is so bad these days. Yeah, it's dreadful. That old Willie Nelson song about Dallas, take a ride on her Central Expressway. No, you don't want to do that. You'll take your life in your hands when you do that. Also singing about breezing down the LBJ, I have to laugh out loud because that is nigh on impossible. That just does not happen. Any of you who have ever driven through Dallas before, that does not happen. Not anymore. When he wrote that song and recorded it back in the early 60s, maybe. But you go to Dallas today, that is not possible. And even if you are going through the express lane tunnels that they have built on the LBJ freeway, no, there is no breezing down the LBJ. Those of you who have driven through Dallas, you will know what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's move on.
Tell her your gun story. And by the way, wipe your teeth. They're covered in makeup. Very nerdy. I like it, but... No, okay, so anyways,
gun stories.
The gun story
you know they've got a solid marriage whenever they, whenever the husband can call out the wife like that on stream.
She moves to Texas, and her friends from San Francisco
My ex-wife would have killed me for doing something like that.
are like, you are going to be shot. Simone, you cannot move there. She goes, you know, they're like...
Yeah, no, I hear that all the time. They're super cute, to be frank. They really are. They really are. This is a lovely couple. Definitely defying expectation. You would think these people would be committed gay race communists. And no, they're actually some of the most traditionalist, right-leaning people that you can find on the internet. And I find that incredibly, like I said, it's paradigm breaking, but incredibly refreshing. But yes, no, speaking to their point, so many people, I can't tell you how many people, even VTuber colleagues in the space, when I've talked about how I frequent Texas cities for either business or as a holiday goer, they just, some of them, you can tell, it's kind of a litmus test of sorts. You could tell who is a shit-lib leftist and who is not when they start talking about, oh my God, how can you... They think it's Dodge City out here, where they think that if you go into any Texas city or small town, that all of a sudden tumbleweeds will start blowing. You will hear spaghetti western music from Ennio Morricone, and all of a sudden you will have people in western garb, Clint Eastwood and, some of his co-stars coming out, and all of a sudden there's going to be gunfight at the OK Corral in the middle of Main Street in small-town Texas. To hear some of these people talk, they really believe that's what it's like in Texas. And I have to keep telling them, okay, have you ever been to Chicago? Yes, I've been to Chicago. Okay, well, have you ever been to New York City? Oh, yes, I love New York City. Lovely city. Big Apple, greatest city in the world. Okay, well, have you ever been to, Los Angeles, for example? Or Miami, Florida? It's like, oh, yeah, I've been to Miami. I've been to Los Angeles, yeah. What about San Francisco? Maybe San Diego or Seattle, Washington. It's like, oh, yeah. I've been there many, many times. Lovely places. Okay. Think of that as Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, only maybe a bit flatter and bigger. And maybe the traffic could be better or worse, depending on the time of day. It's really like that. Now, there are some places in large Texas cities I don't want to be walking around there at night. I have female colleagues at my place of work who have lived in large cities. Some of them, whenever I happen to be in an office in one of the major Texas cities, will say, oh, I've thought about, I live so close to the office, I think I might just rent a scooter and ride that to work. To which I say, please, for the love of God, for the love of all that is good and holy, don't do that. Because they also say, well, I also happen to work late at night. I was like, yes, exactly. Do you want to be accosted by some of the homeless people in XYZ city? I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Do you want some random crazy coming up to you, begging you for money? And possibly trying to grab and grope you? Like, oh, yeah, you're right. See, if it were a man, I'd just tell him kick their ass and then just go about your business. But these are female colleagues that we're talking about. But major Texas cities are, these days, nigh on indistinguishable from cities in the Midwest, the East Coast, the West Coast. It's just that the air quality is a bit shite, and the traffic sucks, and yeah, I don't know. They all just sort of run together after a while. It's lovely out in the country. Some of the smaller towns in West Texas and the hill country and in further in East Texas, they're beautiful. Lovely people. But you're not going to be shot the minute you step out of your car. Or the minute you just step outside and try to walk on the sidewalk somewhere. It's honestly a bit hilarious. It really is. I even went over and when I was at the National Rail Museum in York. This was when I was traveling in the UK a month or two back. I had a lovely conversation and lunch with another museum goer who she told me that I told her that I live in America now, and she's like, oh my God, I don't know how you can possibly live over there, considering who they just elected as president. And I would be so scared to walk around there because, I'm LGBTQXYZ, and, they would probably shoot me dead. because of all the guns that they have. And, you know, your president is such a Austrian painter admirer, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, you are entitled to that opinion. I doubt I could persuade you otherwise. But having lived there, I can tell you, it's not like that at all. They didn't believe me. They just didn't believe me. They badly brainwashed Jikes. No, this this young lady was transgendered, and I believe was like an extra of somebody who was working in a tech field for the BBC. So it, or she was trying to anyway. Lovely person. We had a lot to talk about when it came to trains. Quite the train enthusiast, apparently. But yeah, just very, I don't know how to describe it. Very, very smooth-brained when it came to, very smooth-brained when it came to the idea of living in America, or just, you know, the idea that her very existence would be constantly under siege, living and walking about in everyday life in the United States, and nothing could be further from the truth. And I say that as somebody who does live in America. It doesn't happen. Most people don't care. They are too busy living their own lives to really give a shit about yours. It is hard enough to survive, not just in the UK, but in the US right now. You know, we have an economy that is still in recovery mode for a lot of people in the working class. And they're not concerned. They're too busy working and trying to improve their own lives to be concerned with, oh my god, there's a gay person, or there's a transgender person. It's just like, especially these days, like, oh, okay, so what? They don't care. They really don't care. And that's what I tried to tell, when I tried to tell this person, was that you would be surprised how many would not care. How many would not notice you at all. It is so easy to fly under the radar with a lot of people. I don't think I could ever live in a city. I'm very much a small-town countryside person. Current state of major cities is even more off-putting. You know, Lux, I don't blame you in the slightest, and I sympathize completely. I lived in a small town with access to a larger city for quite some time, and I love that part, the tranquility of it all. It's quiet at night and in the morning, to where the only thing that you really hear is crickets chirping, or cicadas in the summertime. I think at one point we may have heard wolves howling at night, especially on a rather cold night. Or birds singing in the morning with greeting the sunrise. Which, waking up to a sunrise in the countryside, it's peak. I mean, it is just... It seems like such a simple, little thing. But it's so restorative to the human soul. It really is just... Oh. I miss living in the country, I really do. And if I wasn't so concerned about leaving aging family members behind, I would do it in a heartbeat. And not only that, if it weren't so cost prohibitive these days, but, you know, economies being what they are, we have to make certain sacrifices. They badly brainwashed, yikes. Yes, they really were. They really were. And it's sad too, because they're a lovely person. You know, despite fundamental disagreements on philosophy and politics, and lived experience that just... you could see the cognitive dissonance on their face. And it was kind of sad. It's not something that they would expect me to get angry about it. I don't. I just, if anything, I pity her. I really do. That's in the end, that's all I have, is just pity. Which they're not expecting, and probably would just infuriate them even more. What I don't understand, and none of them can ever seem to explain, what rights were lost? None. None at all. This is all... They're playing themselves. They're gaslighting themselves. Which also bugs me about the current movement. What rights do they not have? They have all of them. Yes, if anything, they have more rights that have come at the expense. If anything, they have more rights coming at the expense of the majority population. Boop the Awesomest, welcome in. Good to see you. How you doing?
Shooting people they've got guns everywhere. Simone had to like explain it was not like a public shooting range, and they did not believe her. They were terrified for her life.
You know, yeah. I have a similar story to that. Do you want to hear it?
Oh yeah, go.
So like,
please,
man,
story time.
It's kind of a sad story, but my grandpa, he used to be super conservative, and then what happened was as he grew older, he ended up being in the care of like more liberal family members, and they cut him off of like Fox. They only forced him to watch CNN, and it was like he would tell me like, I just want to watch my Fox Leaflit. I just want to watch Fox. They won't let me. And so like, it was kind of like...
That is awful. That almost sounds like... I would say that's a case of elder abuse. And I would say that no matter if it was Fox News or if it's just like, they just want to watch like Nick at Night or you know, one of the 24-hour television channels that has nothing but reruns of old TV. It's like, you're not going to let them watch that? That I would call that elder abuse. I would genuinely call that elder abuse.
And it was kind of weird. Sad. It's really sad. And then I remember they slowly, like, they would tell him like for instance, he was going to vote for Trump in I think 2016. He was going to vote for Trump, and they basically told him like, if you vote for Trump, we're going to lose our job and all of our money and all of our livelihood. And so, like, he got guilted into voting for Hillary.
That's a fucking lie. That's an absolute fucking lie. I mean, who other than civil servants under the current administration have lost their jobs? Who other than grifters and civil servants have lost their jobs?
Hillary. And he told me like, this is like a big regret. Like, I regret it. I didn't want to vote for her, but like I did. And so this kept going. It kept going on and on. And the last conversation I had with him before he passed was he goes, Leaflit, do you still carry a gun? And I was like, yeah, I carry a gun all the time. And he's like,
good for her.
Stop carrying a gun, because when the police find out you're Asian, they will shoot you. And I was like, who told you that? I was like, what's
That
going
is
on? It was so-
no. That is not how any of that works. This is what we're hearing from Leaflit. What happened to her granddad? That's elder abuse. This is more serious. I mean, there's the big smiles and outrage about it and all. This is elder abuse, what we've just heard. This is a poor old man being gaslit and brainwashed into accepting and believing everything that he knows to be not so in his heart. And all because his caregivers, whoever the fuck they are, wouldn't let him watch Fox News. It's the absolute micromanaging and meddling of these little tyrants, these little tyrannical arseholes. This is elder abuse, and those people need to be made to... a price has to be paid for that sort of thing. These people belong in a prison cell for what they did to that poor old man. They've literally done the thing from 1984, and also from that two-parter of Star Trek The Next Generation, where they put up 4 lights, told the old man there are 5, but instead of what happened with the good ending of Picard saying there are still 4 lights, he finally bent the knee and said there are 5. But I suppose it's easy to punch down when you're dealing with the elderly.
Oh, wait, this is the last conversation I ever had with my grandpa.
That's so sad.
So
Right?
bizarre.
Yeah, weird.
That does make me very angry at... I don't want to say
Me
like your
too.
family members, but like the wider. But I also, oh, by the way, just for audience who like doesn't know, it's for safety because of like the weirdos on VTubers and stuff like that, and like you even like stream with a gun, from what I remember.
Oh yeah, I've got lots. I just like guns. I have a lot of them, but I always.
I knew there was something I liked about Leaflit. Yes. I also have ready access to certain self-defense measures myself. So, I'm not terribly concerned about weirdos on the internet, or even about certain psychopaths who may try to dox me. Terrible, yes or no. Because I know how to defend myself. And you try to come after me or my family, and yeah, it won't end well. We'll just leave it that way.
Carry a gun for protection.
That is awesome.
Yeah,
What made you
we,
decide to move, like, awake? I mean, because most people get so used to California, like the idea of leaving seems incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of other things changed with you politically, but like, why did you decide to take the leap?
So it was really hard because California has a lot of nice things. You know, there's a lot of bad things, but there's also a lot of nice things. There's family there. But what happened was, after COVID happened, and Gavin Newsom, he did a lot of things, like a lot of things where he had rules for other people, but not for himself. And he just the general way that he handled COVID.
Yeah.
And so
I'm
what
hoping
happened
you'd
was
forget about
he got
that.
recalled, and like Larry Elder went up against him, and me and my mom were like, oh, finally, like someone's gonna kick this guy out because he sucks, right? And they voted to keep him in. And my mom, like, she said, Leaflit, this place is cooked. Like,
Yeah.
we're
No, Mum's right. California's cooked. Larry Elder probably would have stood a chance of becoming the next governor of California if they had voter ID and if they didn't hand out driving licenses to illegals and if they had stricter immigration laws. But because they don't have any of that stuff, Democrats have a pretty assured pipeline of people who will always keep them in power.
We need to get out of here. This is so bad. Like if he can win after everything that happened, he can never lose. So
Yeah,
we're like, okay.
basically.
And then so immediately, like literally the next month, we started looking for houses. We're just out of
So
here.
if it makes you feel any
Awesome.
better about him, one thing I'm really excited about for this next election cycle, because everyone thought that he was going to be like the guy to be the next presidential candidate.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't put this together
much
yet.
for that.
He had the Olympic Games happening in LA right before this.
Yeah.
We're like, okay, fucking half the city is burned down. Trump's not going to contribute any federal dollars to this Olympic cycle.
No.
The Olympics has become more and more
Why should
corrupt
they?
every year.
Yes.
Like, this is going to be the disaster of disastrous Olympics.
Yeah, having any city that hosts the Olympics, they usually end up going bankrupt. And it is to the point where the only cities that can afford to host the Olympics are ones that have already hosted them before. There is so much graft and corruption around the Olympics to where it's just become a joke. And it's like, who even watches anymore? I mean, seriously, who even watches the Olympics? I don't care. Does anybody else care? I don't.
Yes. It will be
And
entertaining.
I am here for it. I've got my binoculars. I want to see the.
Oh, Pettis won
Content
such a
gold
disgrace to Europe. Yeah,
And it's
indeed.
going to have a big trans controversy right in the middle of it because Trump has recently announced that he plans to deny visas to the Olympic athletes that are going by a different gender. And of course, Gavin Newsom's going to put his D on the table on the other side of this issue.
Of
And
course
it
he
is going to be a hilarious fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Where do you think the future of America is? Like, where do you see your friends and colleagues and other contacts building their lives? If not, because it used to just be that like all cool people would typically gravitate to like LA, San Francisco, New York, maybe Boston.
Now
Are
they're
you
moving
seeing a
towards
shift
Austin.
in that among people that you hang out with and talk with a lot? Is it more dispersed now?
Yeah. Well, the problem is a lot of these big cities are just not affordable.
Yeah.
It's impossible. And
Yeah.
I keep telling a lot of people that live in these big cities, it's like you're not really out of the tutorial of life until you own property. Because that's how like as long
Yeah.
as you're paying rent, you're literally just losing money every month. And
You really are. And I don't know about anybody else in my past experience. When I was living in apartments and in rentals, I was having to move every year. It was to the point that I did not bother unpacking things because I knew in about 3 months before the lease was up, I'd just have to be packing everything up and leaving. Because I knew the landlords were going to just jack up the rent so high that it just wouldn't be worth it to live there anymore. It's untenable, unsustainable.
it's just not affordable to actually like own a place. In
It's not
California,
even-
it's $1 million.
Yeah, it's not even the
Mhm.
right career path anymore. So if you're in like the entertainment space, for example,
Yeah.
I think we especially saw it after this election cycle, is like I used to want to be like a newscaster, right? Like on TV
Mhm.
eventually or something. And now it's like, why would I want to be that? Like they get like lower
No point.
ratings than like we did a thing recently and like we were worth, I think like during the election cycle in terms of view time, each of us or our podcast alone, so together, 14 New York Times full-time staffers. Like
Mhm.
nobody watches like the mainstream news anymore. And
Bloody hell,
and
that's
because of that,
incredible.
like if you're on this pathway to become like an influencer or like a thought leader, and one of the things I've realized by talking to you is there's like these bubbles of thought leaders. Like you're in the bubble of thought leaders that previously would have been actresses, I think, or or voice actresses.
Yeah,
No, I mean like you're
pretty
an
much.
entertainer, right? Like, and like we're in the space that like, and you end up knowing everyone in that space really quickly. Like, and like with us, like we know, like I think it's so
Yes and
weird
no.
that like we're like friends with people like Curtis Yarvin and stuff like that. And I'm like it's weird, but like we're in the intellectuals space. And the question is you know, can we continue to build from here? I don't know. It's difficult. Like I know some friends in the space who have built like really sustainable incomes, but outside of this, I think the real way to do this is to build sort of, I guess I'd call it like peerage networks, and then release products that people within our industry want, whether it's games, like the stuff that, because one of the things I was thinking about, like my game release, is I'm like, how am I going to get this game in front of people, everything like that? And I'm like, oh, all I need to do is piss off the games media, then reach out to my friends. Like I've been on side scrollers a bunch, you know, I have contacts with like No Grums, like I can get them to cover this stuff. And I'm sure you're the same way, right? Like, and I'm like, oh shit, like that's everything you need to do to like get in front of an audience these days. Now I just need to make a good product.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's crazy just how things have shifted so hard. Like before, only certain people, certain like larger companies had like the keys to all of the, you know, all of the kingdoms, and like now it's kind of being more distributed amongst like, you know, individuals, which is great.
Yeah,
but the independents are ruling. So many of the AAA game studios have just done everything they could to alienate their core audience. And then I actually saw a tweet earlier today from, I think it was from Rev Says Desu. I should become the woke Rev Says Desu. Only if you want to get ratioed out of existence, Kazu. Let's see. Here it is. Developers are bankrupting studios in their attempt to virtue signal towards activists on social media when it's quite literally this easy to make gamers happy. Designed in just a few weeks, this $5 indie game about digging a hole has journeyed to the center of Steam's top sellers chart. A game about digging a hole is selling more copies than Dynasty Warriors Origins. I wonder if I should play this, chat. This looks like this could be a kind of a comfy, cozy game in the same vein as, say, Power Wash Simulator. What do we think? Would you want to see his lordship trying to dig a big hole? I have a feeling some of you might actually go in for that sort of thing. Anyway.
Like isolated social circles has also been really weird. I don't know if you've bumped into this, where like you see somebody who produces content that in some way is similar to you, but they're like part of a social circle that like you have never engaged with.
Well,
easier
it's
than you think.
That's a tough one for me because I'm pretty antisocial. So I'm notoriously bad at like collabing and kind of.
Yeah, and there's more people like that than you know. I mean, as of late, I've had weekly collabs with regular people. Like Nozomi Olwen and with Roya Rampage. There's some that, you know, obviously would teen up here and can expect in the fair near future. So, but it's been one of us sort of making the overture. But you would be amazed how often I'm kind of the one to have to make the overture of, hey, let's collab sometime. And even sometimes it's necessary to just sort of sound them out, feel them out, see if they're... Because there's also a bit of a vibe check. Like, I've had some people who have, sort of followed or liked on Twitter and, check out their content. It's like, oh, yeah, they're pretty cool. Okay. Yeah, reach out and it's like, hey, I've seen some of your content. Pretty cool stuff. Wondered if you'd be interested in a collab. And for some reason, they just, I don't know, the vibe seems off. They're kind of failing the vibe check. And so I don't pursue it any further. I'm just like, yeah, if you're going to be this cold and clinical to me in the DMs and kind of unfriendly, it's like, maybe we better rethink this.
Trying to reach out to people to like kind of like do things together. I'm just bad at it because I'm kind
It
of
can be hard sometimes.
I'm sort of the person that kind of just likes to be alone and play games. So it's like I get nervous around
I
people very
mean,
easily.
there's a
I'm
benefit
the
in
same
that
way.
too.
I'm the same way.
That's what I'm
one
doing
of the
today.
things that we actually constantly talk about on our channel is trying to normalize. Like we sort of talked about like extreme levels of introversion in our society. We've almost treated it as like it's a condition or something to overcome. And the only reason that like I'm good at socializing is because I treat it like a job. Like I would never. I live on a farm with my wife, and we leave like almost never. And most of my friendships are parasocial. Like I'm like I have a lot of friends. No, it's actually a really interesting thing, and I don't know if this has happened to you. Where like I have a lot of friends where like I talk to them once every 3 months or so, but like they watch my content and I watch their content, and so I'm like, that's all I need.
The perfect world.
So it's like you're kind of like interacting with people, but kind of at your own pace, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's way more
No,
efficient.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I don't know. There are also some people. My ex-wife is one who springs to mind, who claim they're introvert, and then they kind of out themselves when they start talking about, I know there was one thing that was like a real moment of clarity for me, realizing who the fuck I actually married. When the COVID lockdowns were happening, and she's just like, oh no, we're gonna have to shelter in place and not go out and not deal with people, which sounds lovely. And I'm just like, okay, you're not really an introvert, are you? You're just sort of an antisocial bitch, aren't you? That started to become evident as the years went on with her. I used to be that person, rather just people leave me alone, let me play my games, but in recent I tend to struggle quite a bit with a feeling of loneliness. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of the unintended consequence of it all, is that, yeah, sure, you're left alone eventually to just play your games, but then after a while it starts to get lonely. So it's just like, even introverts need to go outside and touch grass. You need to get out there and socialize with people. I get it. With introverts, they have lower social batteries than extroverts. Extroverts, their social batteries get recharged by dealing with people. I think there's a limit to even that. I consider myself a fairly extroverted person, or maybe an introverted extrovert, but even I have my limits to where it's just like, okay, this is too many people, this is maybe a bit too much socializing, I need to pull back a bit, I need to be alone for a little while and recharge the social batteries. So yeah, there's just, I think some people, the point that I was trying to get at was, some people, I think, they call themselves introverts, and they're really just antisocial and not in a good way.
Everyone gets a ton more done. People are spending less time and money, and yet they still have deep relationships. And they often know each other. Like what we're seeing more and more, whether or not someone has a following, is that there's a lot of parasocial stuff going on, and often like while they're cleaning or working or other stuff. So this isn't time that's competing with like their few time, like hours off of work, for example. And then occasionally they'll like go to a conference or a retreat or travel to a city and meet up with these people in person. So that they still get that in-person contact, but you get most of the benefits of friendship. This is not a replacement for what community used to be, where like you just lived
Oh, I
and
see. It's
depended
the
on people
distant-
really closely. But in terms of like loose friend networks, I think this is a way more efficient way to do it, and it's great.
Final question then for her.
Yeah.
So I want to focus on the question of, because I actually don't know this. You're the only streamer like I know. Like all the other people we know are like YouTubers or Substackers or stuff like that. Like, what is the streaming audience like when contrasted with the YouTube audience in terms of how you're producing content?
This should be
Yeah.
interesting.
It's a little bit. So, I think that the difference is it's more. There's a lot more interaction, right? People
Yes.
come to streams. I think this is really what it is. Is a lot of people come to streams to like spend time with someone, like feel like you're hanging out with people because it's live, right? And like people will comment
Yeah.
and then you'll respond in real time. So it's like it's kind of like you're hanging out in the same room with people, and even like when you hear this a lot, like, oh wow, you're just watching someone play games. It's more
No.
like you're playing
It's
games
more
with
than
your
that.
friends.
Mm.
That's kind of like the
I mean, I grew up in the 90s and in the late 1980s, and some of the most memorable socializing times was when I was with friends and either playing video games with them or watching them play video games. I think it's the same basic vibe, except we're all adults here now. And it's all of you gathering here in Castle Rexworth whilst we watch videos together and talk about it, or I play a video game, either solo or with other people that I collab with, and relationships get nurtured that way and grow from that. It's it just what we used to do as kids, continuing on in a more virtual setting, but same basic vibe.
the kind of feeling behind it. It's like you're chilling on the couch and you're playing Sonic the Hedgehog and your friends are watching you play. It's kind of like that vibe to it.
So
Mhm.
when
I
you're
love that.
putting something together,
Leaflit, darling, I love you. You just described my childhood in a nutshell there. I was like, where's this girl been my entire life? But she has. I'm definitely following now, and will be following her content much more closely.
how do you, I don't know how to put it, but like perfectly masturbate this desire or
Mhm.
instinct?
I'm
right?
sorry,
Like,
what?
Mhm.
What are you thinking when you're doing that?
Perfectly. Bro, what? What? Ayo? What is with that choice of words? I don't know if that fits there. What? I don't know if he was Did he mean manifest? Maybe. I don't know, but it came out as masturbate. And here they are talking about how they want to be a family show. It's all right. The outtakes and the goofs are oftentimes the funniest part of content.
Well, for me, it's more like I try to pick games that people like, and then I try to just respond to them when people talk. Like you have to always one eye on your chat, so it's like
That's streaming and VTubing in a nutshell. There, I'm keeping one eye on the chat, which has mercifully been the Kick YouTube and Twitch chat has been merged into one. I'm sure the editor loved that. Yeah, it looks like I just left it in. But yeah, it's balancing, what's the hit new thing with what am I willing to play? There are certain incredibly popular games out there that I personally can't stand it. I would not be happy doing that. And I have actually, I've tried out some games just, to keep an open mind, especially play with others, and I can't. There was a big Stellaris collab that I was in about a year or two ago, and yeah, in the middle of it, I'm just like, I'm done. I can't do this. It was on stream too. I'm just like, I am not having fun. I'm not enjoying this. This is not what I imagined it would be like. And everyone else, they tried so hard to sell me on Stellaris. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, guys. I can't. I just can't. This is not... Maybe it's fun to you. I'm not having fun. I'm sorry. I gotta bow out. So we just left it at that. So yeah, those of you who are watching that may be interested in a collab with his lordship, please don't bring up Stellaris. I'm just going to tell you no. Just flat out.
It's like sometimes it's that I was like talking about this, like when I'm streaming, I actually suck more at games because I'm constantly distracted, like trying to like look for a conversation hook to like talk about, right? So like if somebody says something, it's like, oh, that's something I can talk about, and then like you clip into that, and then you can have a conversation with everyone in chat.
No, I find this really interesting because I think our audience as well will not know anyone like you. Like you represent
They probably won't.
a
Most, I mean, I think it is a testament to how open-minded and how far the Lotus Eaters crew has come. Considering having Kirsha on as a guest, a VTuber. Because probably 6 months to a year earlier, you had Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, on a podcast episode of the Lotus Eaters, talking about how, oh, well, VTubers, they're all men, aren't they? They're just hiding behind voice changes in an anime avatar. And getting absolutely roasted by Rev Says Desu about that. I was just like, bro, tell me you've never watched a VTuber stream or gotten to know who a VTuber is without actually telling me you've never watched this stream or gotten to know who they were. It's just like, that is not what VTubing is about. Are there some VTubers who do change their voice? Yes. Are there some, VTubers who gender swap? Male VTubers, men who are VTubing with female avatars? Yes. Case in point, Rev Says Desu. Are there females who gender swap and have male avatars? Yes, there are plenty of those. But, yeah, it was a very inelegant, ignorant comment from Sargon, and the fact that they are now considering having Kirsha on or enthusiastically wanting to have Kirsha on as a guest on the Lotus Eaters, I think really speaks to how far they come and how far they have educated themselves on just who VTubers are and what they're about. I was just showing you how versatile this space really is, that you can have people like Leaflit and myself and Kirsha and Smuggulana and to a certain extent Rosie Belmu and Paws and some of these other people and Nuxtaku talking about political and cultural subjects. Grown-up issues, and having really deep and meaningful conversations about it. There seems to be this, for a long time, there was this prevailing so-called collective wisdom that you shouldn't talk politics, you'll alienate half your audience. And turns out, no, you can actually have thoughtful conversations about this, even with people either on stream with you or in your audience who may disagree with you on some things, but we can keep the conversation civil and disagree without it being disagreeable, and grow and learn from that and share different perspectives. I admit when VTubers started getting popular, I did avoid because I was worried they'd be more like the brainwashed peeps. Yeah, and I mean, you're going to have that in certain segments of the VTubing sphere. There's plenty of them that are, I mean, the shitlibs, for lack of a better term. You've also got people who are fairly down the middle, who are open-minded, willing to collab with people of differing beliefs, differing faiths, different philosophies in life. I mean, we've talked about it on stream. Nozomi Owen and I do not agree on probably some fundamental things. And yet, we still manage to get along just fine and collab and work as a team, especially in video games where you are required to work as a team. And I think that's a testament to the strength of individuals when they come together. Even though they may disagree on some things, they still manage to set aside those differences and work together for a common good. But it also helps that she has a very open-minded approach to all this, to where she doesn't shut down opposing viewpoints. She is a curious person who wants to learn more, and I like that about her. I really do like that about her. We will both say things that I'm sure we'll both disagree on, but we both have that intellectual curiosity to ask the difficult questions and have those thoughtful conversations and just learn more and try to benefit from the experience. And that's something I really respect and admire about her. And why... And just not only that, she's really fun to be around. She's really fun to hang out with and to learn more about and just get to know better as a friend. And we also have fun on stream together. So it's, you know, for me, it's just a no-brainer. I have fun with her. She has fun with me. And from there, a friendship has sprouted. But it also... I think it's a really strong testament to her character that, you know, when the whole row with my now former VTuber group happened, and I ended up just exiting that group, that she was firmly in my camp, and she just said, look, I don't necessarily agree, but I think it's wrong what they did to you, and I don't think this is something that was worth getting so... It was them worth getting so upset about and, you know, trying to throw you under the bus. And I've never forgotten that. She's just like, my attitude is when I hear people that I disagree with or I don't understand, I want to learn more. And I really respect that. But I think something else that really polarized her, or that she really just recoiled against, I shouldn't say polarized, but it's something that she really recoiled against, was when people started going behind my back and sliding into her DMs and saying, you shouldn't collab with Rex because he said XYZ. And her immediate response, without even thinking about it, was, who the fuck are you to tell me who I should and should not collab with? I'll collab with whoever I like. and he's entitled to his opinions. I think what really hurt me was that this was someone who was, at one point, very close to me, saying this about me behind my back, and thinking that I wouldn't find out about it. Then again, they weren't exactly... They've never really been the brightest. I'm not going to say who they were. They know who they are.
Side of, I think, this cultural shift that is aligned with a lot of our experiences, but completely out of anything that they have done. Like, I would doubt very many of our fans, like, they might like your YouTube channel, but I doubt you're going to get any, like, Twitch subscribers from this. You know, they're mostly like I know our fans, like, they mostly are like McKinsey types. So they're like venture capitalists, or they like work at McKinsey, or they're
It's
like
definitely a different crowd. It's like a different. It's streaming is it's a different audience than YouTube videos. And the thing is, it's like I consume both, right? Like I'll sometimes, I'm actually, to tell you the truth, I actually don't watch that many streams. I watch mostly YouTube. I'm mostly like a YouTube person.
Yeah, I will keep friends of mine who are streamers on in the background for the most part, just to help bump the view count up a little bit for them. But that's just it. I'm probably doing something else. You know, like the other night I was editing some videos and trying to get some content up for the remainder of the month and into March. And I think my senpais, Yunatsu Shiroi and Razorwind, were collabing at the time. And so I left them on in the background, left a tab up for them. But most of the time I was focusing on editing. And the other night I was watching some other streamers, you know, kind of leaving them up in the background, give them some support. But my main focus was just kind of decompressing from the week and watching some YouTube videos. So I'm kind of the same way, and it's, you know, obviously no offense intended by any of that. These are people that I'm supporting for a reason, because I like them and I like their content and everything, and I want them to succeed as streamers and content creators. But you know, I get it. We get a lot of lurkers here in this chat too. A lot of you have lives of your own to live. I'm not expecting you we're now into our 5th hour of streaming. I'm not expecting all of you to, you know, have your focus entirely on me. I know you have lives to live, and this is probably something you've got on in the background while you're doing other things. I totally understand. You know, Jedi, friend of the program, he has my stream on in one of his earbuds while he's working. I've been told many other people do the same thing. They keep me on in the background as, you know, sort of BGM or background noise, kind of keeps them sane while they're having to, you know, deal with whatever it is that they're dealing with, whether it's classes at uni or they're having to, you know, deal with the drudgery of the day job. And I get it. I've been there. You need something to sort of distract you from all of that, because it can be maddening. And so I'm happy to serve in that regard. I quite like finding small streamers to watch because you can actually talk to them. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some point where the chat is going, the audience count, the follow count are going to be such, and the audience participation is going to be such that I can't really address every single chatter that types something in. So that day will come someday. Perhaps someday very soon, even. But in the meantime, chat speaks at a frequency that I can actually read it out. It's why I've never really... I mean, people have always... One of the first things they notice about me is the voice. I get it a lot. Get it all the time, in fact. Yeah, it's just one of those things where... Knowing that I have that strength, I tend to, at this point, find it unnecessary to invest in a TTS bot or to have a whole... I mean, it's there by default, but I don't think anybody really feels the need to have the message highlighted. I've had people who have redeemed highlight my message, and it's... I don't know, sometimes it just seems like they're kind of acting like a pick-me. Don't do that, by the way. Top tip, chat. Don't be a pick-me, please. If I'm not reading your message, I'm either focused on something and we'll get caught up with chat later, or there are sometimes that, you know, even just the other night we had somebody say something in chat and I'm just like, I'm not reading that. And had to very briefly scold them to tell them to behave themselves. So yeah, don't be a pick-me. Don't be a pick-me, please.
But yeah, I mean, I get it. It is a completely different audience. Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I don't know. I think that people from McKinsey and Bain and Company, I don't know, they might actually like watching a VTuber. I think we could probably find... there's probably a handful of them that would go in for that sort of thing. Going to sleep, mister. Have a good night. Take care. You too, your mother. Have a good rest. I hope you have a fantastic day tomorrow.
Awesome. I love it. It was great talking to you, and I'm going
Thank
to
you
stop
so
recording
much.
now.
All right.
And oh wait, no, what am I saying? Okay, what's the name of the game that people need to go to? What's
Yeah,
Game
don't
is
forget the plugs.
Angels Sword RPG, Illyrian Chronicles.
Go back.
Game is Angels Sword RPG, Illyrian Chronicles.
Angel Sword RPG. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. If you have any thoughts, questions, or ideas for future videos, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. You can also follow me on Twitter @LordRexworth for more updates and behind-the-scenes content. And if you want to support the channel, check out my Ko-fi or Throne pages. Links are in the description. Finally, be sure to visit LordRexworth.com and follow me across all platforms. That's LordRexworth.com. Until next time, I wish you all the best, and God bless.